Welcome back to Munchausen's Proxy, where I am shocked to say that CW might have gotten something right this week. I've been saying for weeks that the writers at CW are blithering idiots with the writing talent of a half-rotten durian, and anyone connected to Batwoman especially so, since the showrunners of Gotham Knights were writers on that dystopian hellscape of an excuse for art. That is even more true. However, something I have been harping on for weeks now was rectified, if only temporarily. But we will get to that in due time. I am not saying episode 7 of Gotham Knights was good. It merely bucked one bad trend among dozens the show has. So let's get into the spoiler review for episode 7 of Gotham Knights. Last week was dumb, so there was only upward to go, and the only significant thing to happen was Lincoln March being put in the hospital by Talon. This week starts with the dumbest art heist ever put to film. Our genius art thief breaks in without tripping any alarms, showing a certain amount of sophistication and skill. They go straight for the single painting they are after, thereby narrowing down the reasons why said painting would be stolen and who might want it. Now, do they make sure the painting is not rigged with an alarm or laser or a pressure switch system, as someone who could break in without tripping the exterior alarms would? Of course not. Why? Because this is the CW and the writers used to work on Batwoman. The thief rips it right off the wall, triggering the alarm that anyone who has seen a heist movie in the last 3 decades knew would be on it. Then, instead of hightailing it out of there, for which there was plenty of time, the thief stands there like an idiot and waits for all of the guards to come in, one by one. And by all, I mean 4. And as each comes in, they get their asses kicked into dreamland using the rope the thief rappelled down on and what looked like parkour moves. Only then does the thief, who I was pretty sure was a woman, take the single painting in a room full of art and leave. What the f***ing hell? And of course, we get a news clip covering the art heist with the title, quote, "Serial Art Thief Strikes Again. Absence Makes the Art Grow Fonder," unquote. Whoever came up with that should be blacklisted from the world's entertainment industry. And apparently it was City Hall that was hit, not a museum as it appeared. They then suggest the local heroes, the Gotham Knights, get on it and bring the thief in, as if they were some kind of adjunct to robbery homicide. To which Duella rolls her eyes hard enough to be audible. Harper is of like mind in giving that a hard pass. Cullen, however, tells her they are a little more than the overpriced swirls of paint as she suggested. She, however, doubts he wants to risk his life for them, asking if it is worth it to collect things for rich people. He points out that describes most of the jobs they have pulled. Duella cuts in to remind him that he was paid money to do it. Then the news replays the video of them dumping the cash in the streets, and Duella turns it off, complaining about them replaying the worst day of her life. Turner thinks it was worth it to get the ledger. Cullen then objects to him not caring about cultural artifacts like he does some mobster's day planner. The girls agree with Turner. Cullen is upset that they are not interested in saving something that will outlast them. But Turner tells him they have bigger problems than that, and you know that they will obviously wind up on the art robberies. This is when Robin and Stephanie join the party in the tower. Turner asks after Brody and his dad, and Stephanie says that Dad is still in a coma and nobody can tell Brody who did it or why. Turner then suggests that until they figure out how Talon is still alive after 100 years, they have nothing to tell him. Duella suggests there is a way, with a wicked smile that made me hopeful when I saw it. She leaves without telling them where she is going, which worries Robin. Harper thinks it would have been better if Harvey could have told the police more than an unknown sword-wielding assassin, but the others agree it would just make him sound crazy and end his bid to be mayor. At the hospital, Harvey visits Lincoln and asks after Rebecca March. She tells him that the first thing she thought of was something happening to Harvey, and she couldn't bear it. Now, she says this in the middle of a hospital hallway. Oh, and the entire scene is just dreadful. Harvey is surprised. She asks what is going on in Gotham these days, and he has no idea. So he tells her to take Brody and get out of the city because it isn't safe. And he tells her not to trust anyone. Now remember that for later. She retorts that she can trust him. Remind me again how those two parted company last? Oh yeah. Harvey being confused about waking up in her bed butt-ass naked, and her walking out of the room while saying she can't be in two toxic relationships. Then we have the police watching the video of the heist, and having some of the same thoughts I had watching the opening scene. That tells me somebody in the Gotham Knights writer's room drools a little bit less than the other drooling imbeciles. And as the scene progressed, and I saw the video a couple of times, I was positive the thief would be female. A new detective, who also just happens to be female, is brought onto the case, and she walks in during their viewing of the tapes. She comes in and gives a rather stupid explanation for why the thief waited for the guards to come in before beating them all unconscious and making her escape. And it was at that point I had a suspicion who the thief was. The problem with the detective's theory is that there was plenty of time to zip up the rope before the guards arrived. Even more so if she had been as smart as her entry into City Hall suggested and disabled the alarm on the painting. The first they would have known about it would be when the guards made their next round past that painting and it wasn't there. Back at school, Duella stole the driver's ed car for some reason. Robin objects, and Duella explains that it is called borrowing if you intend to bring it back. When Robin wonders what she will learn stealing the car, she tells her that the car isn't the only thing she arrived with. In the trunk is Eunice, the Talon's daughter, bound and gagged, and Duella's smile could not get wider. Cullen, meanwhile, recruits Stephanie to the cause of finding and stopping the art thief. She looks into the cases and explains to Turner and Harper that the thief is passing over much more valuable art than the paintings that have been stolen, which is why this whole story is retarded and obvious. She finds out that all of the paintings were owned by Alan Wayne. So, they decide it is the Court of Owls, therefore making it their business. And Turner stands there with a superhero pose saying, "It looks like this is the case for the Gotham Knights after all." Cue the Who's won't get fooled again. Back with Duella, and Robin protesting the kidnapping of Eunice, telling her that just because her dad was a villain doesn't mean she has to be one too. Duella fires back that this is Gotham, and in Gotham, villains get things done. She then bends down to tell Eunice that she will let her out, but she has to be nice, which is when Eunice lunges up for Duella angrily. Duella warns her to calm down and not make her tase her again. Robin is horrified she tased a senior citizen. Robin starts freaking out about elder abuse. Duella tries talking her down, saying, "Sometimes you gotta be bad to get the goods." Upstairs, Stephanie hacks into GCPD, thanking Cullen once more for planting the rubber ducky in their computers. However, the police are just as stumped on the heists as they are. And as I thought about that, I was sure the new detective would be the thief. Absolutely positive. Stephanie starts gushing about the new cop, claiming that she was the reason Catwoman retired. And this might possibly be the most retarded DC timeline ever written down. Harper gets a aha look on her face, leaving to ask some criminals about it when Stephanie asks where she's going. Meanwhile, Harvey is trying to make some sense of the Talon attack when his phone rings. Rebecca March tells him that she sent Brody to his grandmother's, but she is freaking out as she is trying to pack. She thinks somebody is watching her, and she keeps getting weird phone calls with nobody on the other end before they hang up. He tells her to go to the GCPD details on her house, but she doesn't trust them, as he told her not to in the hospital. Frustrated, he tells her he will be right there. Harper then walks into a bar to talk to one of the McKillens. Dylan McKillen, specifically. He is less than happy to see her, and he is a complete wimp. He talks about his feelings and what his therapist told him. She plays on that, and as she walks away, he asks what she needs. Duella, meanwhile, has evil Granny tied up and in a wheelchair in what looks like the school basement. When Duella takes the tape off of her mouth, Eunice shouts and calls her a little bitch. Robin tries to be good cop to Duella's crazy cop, but Eunice tells her that she was in the trunk for the past half hour, and she is convinced Duella went over the same speed bump again and again. Duella smiles and nods when Robin shoots her a questioning look. Robin tells Eunice that they just want some information, and they will chat for a little bit before taking her right back to her nursing home. Eunice has nothing to say. Duella explains that they want to know how her daddy managed not to get dead all of those years. Eunice laughs, saying she can ask him themselves when he comes to chop their adorable little heads off. She is not telling them anything. Duella then decides they need to torture her, turning off her oxygen. Robin objects, quickly turning it back on. Duella complains, telling her to never negotiate for her. When Eunice complains about them stealing her music box, Robin tells her she will go get it for her, and, when she returns, they will have a nice chat. Eunice smiles and nods. Harper returns to the school and Cullen asks what she found out. When she tells them that the criminals are as stumped as the police, Cullen presses for more, but she tries to shut him down. Cullen gives her a look and she crumbles, admitting to going to Dylan for the information, which upsets him. The McKillens think it is someone new in the area, since it is not one of the usual thieves. Stephanie thinks she knows what painting will be next, the only one left that used to belong to Alan Wayne. Turner asks where it is, and when she tells him, Harper says she knows the look he has on his face. They will be breaking into the Kane Museum to get the thief. The idiots go to the Kane Museum storage, and Cullen remarks how ugly the building is to cover for the fact that the CW is using a warehouse to stand in for a museum. They are waiting around for the thief to show up, and it is getting late. Harper is arguing that maybe the thief will strike another night when Turner sees movement. And because they are breaking into a museum, they all put on dark masks. Except Stephanie, who has not even bothered to tie up and tuck under her hat all of that long, bright blonde hair she has flowing around her, thereby negating the dark clothing she is wearing. They follow the thief around the truck parked out front of the building. When they get around it, the thief has disappeared. That is when they start taking fire and Harper is hit on the shoulder. Turner comes up with a batarang and knocks the gun downward, causing the thief to shoot her own leg via ricochet off of a car's rim. And I was right. When they go to see who it is the new detective Stephanie was gushing over. Back with Robin, who has brought Eunice her music box. She takes the tape off of her hands and opens the music box, asking if Eunice was a dancer. She winds up the music box, and Eunice starts talking about going to parties the Court of Owls would hold in weird places. She explains that the court provided everything she could ever want in exchange for her father's service as their talent. However, when he was convicted as the Butcher of Gotham, she thought she would never see him again. On the eve of the execution, they offered him a deal. They would provide a way for him to survive his hanging, and in return he would become the court's enforcer. Duella asks how he survived, and Eunice starts getting evasive, saying they imbued him with something. Whatever it was they used the last of it on Talon, and have been searching for more ever since. Duella wants to know what it was called, but Eunice asks for a glass of water with a rather sneaky look on her face. She giggles at Duella when Robin scurries off to get it. Harvey arrives at the March house to Rebecca telling him she got more calls, but stopped picking up. He is telling her to finish packing when the phone rings again. He picks it up, and it hangs up. He calls the GCPD and has them trace the last call from that phone. And the writing is so bad. He gets a call on his cell, and they tell him it is Miranda Livingston who is calling. Rebecca knows the name, but she doesn't know her personally. Lincoln, however, does. She is his mistress. Back with the idiots, and the cop is demanding to know who they are. Turner tells her they are the Gotham Knights. He then asks if she is a cop or a thief, and she replies that she is a cop who has been extorted into being a thief. Someone took her family. Stephanie binds Harper's wounds, and the banter ensues. The thief says they took her family, and in return for their release, she is instructed to steal the paintings. She is contacted via the cell she gives Turner. Turner tells her they need to get her to a hospital, but she wants to go get the last painting to save her family. He and Cullen volunteer to get the painting for her. Back with Duella, the music box stops and Eunice asks her to wind it up again. When Duella snarks at her, she says she will wait for the sweet one to return. Duella sighs and starts winding it, but Eunice grabs the ballerina from the box and stabs Duella's hand, wrapping her oxygen hose around Duella's neck. She taunts her, saying her father told her a girl with blue eyes got away, but she will finish what he started. Robin drops the glass of water and pulls the old lady off Duella, plopping her in her wheelchair. Duella shows her the ballerina through her hand, and Robin comes to help her up, as Eunice cackles like a madwoman. Back with the idiots, who are figuring out that the intel the detective was given was either bad, or the Kane Museum recently upgraded their security, because there is a biometric scanner on the door. They are contemplating a smash and dash, so Turner pulls out one of Robin's bat bombs and tells them to make sure the engine is running. But they cut to Harvey, still with Rebecca, who is pouring them drinks and asking him to join her. She talks about why her husband's mistress might be crank calling her. Harvey wants to put her in a Wayne security vehicle after their drink so she can join Brody. She ponders her thought that Lincoln only really married her to play his dutiful wife for the public. She starts talking about their relationship, and he tries to resist, but can't. They kiss, and we cut to the idiots, who have just blown the door open to the sound of the alarm going off. Turner and Cullen dart into the building with Harper reminding them they have 60 seconds as she stays behind the wheel of the van. Stephanie guides them over comms and Harper keeps the time. They start rifling through paintings while Stephanie tries to describe it to them. And for some reason, I'm having trouble believing Cullen, an artist, would forget what the bloody painting looks like. Turner finds it, and they book out of there only to see guards coming. They try to avoid the guards, but for some reason, it never occurs to them to lose the frame of the painting as they play hide-and-seek with the guards. One of the guards has them cornered, but Cullen grabs something off of one of the shelves and hurls it away from them, drawing the guards. They get out with the painting and zip away. Back at the school, Turner is not happy about Duella kidnapping Eunice and dragging Robin into it. Cullen then asks what happened to her hand, and she shouts back, "Eunice!" She tells them about the secret sauce that the court had to give them healing ability. Stephanie and Harper don't see anything special about the painting, and Cullen worries that giving it to the court would put even more people in danger. Harper asks how. Stephanie agrees, since they don't know what their plan is, but they have to give it to them so Detective Green's family will be released, which is when the phone Green gave them buzzes with a location for a drop-off. At the drop-off, Turner takes the painting out and the court's vehicles light up with members of the court standing around them with their masks on. He tells them he is a friend of Detective Green's and wants her family, but they insist on the painting first. He hands it over and the guy in the mask scrapes the painting with a knife, satisfied. He then orders the hostages killed and whoever Turner is, as white laser sights are aimed at him. Turner tells him he doesn't think he wants to do that. When the guy asks why, Duella comes out of the van with a gun to Eunice's head, telling them Eunice isn't happy with them. Turner suggests that pissing off a guy who is fond of chopping off heads would be a bad idea. The guy gestures and the laser sights disappear. Turner tells him to release the hostages and they will give up theirs. Green's family is released and Duella gives up Eunice. They speed away. Back at the tower, Stephanie is getting Harper properly bandaged, and Harper thanks Stephanie. Then we jump into bed with Harvey and Rebecca. She wishes things were different for them. He suggests they can be. She makes a connection to Lincoln dying, and he tries to say he didn't mean that. He doesn't want that. He just wants her. She protests about the look to the voters, and he reminds her that the city voted for the Penguin. They kiss, and he starts to tell her he is crazy. When the phone rings, she answers it angrily, thinking it's another crank call, but it is the hospital trying to tell her that Lincoln is awake. We get a newscast showing Green being reunited with her family. Green gives the Gotham Knights the credit on the news as she is hugging her family. Duella is disgusted, and Turner tells her that just because she did a good deed doesn't make her a good person. She turns and smiles at him and goes over to the music box. She puts the ballerina that Robin gave her as a souvenir back in the box, and it triggers a secret compartment. Inside are old pictures of the Court of Owls at gatherings. Harvey goes back to his office to find Cressida waiting for him. She tells him her life is in danger when he demands to know what she is doing there. He is indignant that now that her life is threatened is when she wants to talk. She tells him there is a good reason to help her. She knows what the Court of Owls is planning. Then we see the stolen paintings in a semicircle, with pots of flame illuminating what looks like a barn. Masked members of the court are present, one of them holding a torch. He touches it to the paintings one by one. While the paintings burn, Cressida says she will tell Harvey everything as long as he guarantees her safety. It's not just about her safety, but Gotham's. As the paintings burn, they reveal a city map beneath the paint. And that is how they end the episode. Let's start off this episode breakdown at the beginning. Who wrote the art heist scene? Whoever it was is a moron. The whole idea of a heist like that is to get the art and get out without the painting or yourself being in danger. Neither of those situations were present in that scene. Furthermore, if you are wanting specific paintings for a nefarious reason, you do not advertise to intelligent people that you have a purpose behind the paintings, which means your thief steals more than one painting per break-in. It masks what you are doing so nobody thinks to question why someone would go after Alan Wayne's paintings while leaving far more valuable art on the wall. Especially since the thief bothered to beat into unconsciousness all of the guards, giving her plenty of time to swipe a few more. Also, art thieves generally take the paintings out of the frames while stealing them. Unless the frames themselves are works of art, the paintings are much more easily transported in a rolled up state than having to lug around a frame. And damn if the news clips have not found a new level of bad. They make the morning shows look natural and believable, especially the first one. Seriously, quote, absence makes the art grow fonder, unquote. I can't tell if this is just really bad CW crud, or if they were trying to parody saccharine morning news shows. The route that they took to get the idiots onto the art heist case was beyond predictable. Of course the heist was court orchestrated. Of course they would figure out where the next painting would be. Of course they would get there in time to intercept the thief. Of course it was Green and her family was abducted. I do have a question, however. How did nobody report the gunfire that Green popped off? Oh, and why did she shoot in the first place? She is trying to steal paintings to get her kidnapped family back. Firing a gun is only going to prevent that, especially since she had no idea who she was shooting at. Killing somebody while heisting paintings only seriously increases the jail tally if she winds up caught, and a law enforcement agent would know that. Can we stop the Harvey Dent thing and just put Misha Collins out of our misery? Please? CW? Kill Harvey Dent? You do not have the creative ability to do this character justice, and apparently Misha Collins' soul has left his body because this performance has about as much charisma as a block of wood. I would sooner believe the kid playing Brody as the White Knight of Gotham before what Misha Collins is crapping out each week. And we know he has the ability because he was very good on Supernatural. So it is either the writing or it is the direction he is getting from the showrunners/directors. Either way, nothing he has done this entire episode has been good. No thing. Rebecca March could be whacked as well. I have seen Lauren Stamile in other shows in which she was at least serviceable as a character actress, but she is terrible in this one. She comes across like a telenovela character who is overdosing on tragedy and melodrama in her performance. It is bad. Really bad. The scene where Detective Green walks in and starts spouting her explanation of what the thief did and why was straight up retarded. I mentioned before that it was unnecessary to do the heist that way, and the manner in which she explained it make me wonder how the hell the police didn't look at the tape, look at her frame, and figure out that she was the thief. Then we have the obligatory messaging when Harper and Duella decides to rail against the rich by snarking at the stolen art. Then snark at Cullen when he sticks up for their cultural value. Now, if the art in question was modern art, I would be right there with the writers because modern art is the greatest symptom of the decay of Western civilization. Literally anyone can present anything as art, and if enough people high on their own farts nod their heads at it, then it sells. Modern art aficionados were aghast when some quote-unquote artist had his work eaten by a hungry student in South Korea. What was the piece? He taped a banana to the wall. But I digress, and that is not what we were talking about. Neither Harper nor Duella should have been so dismissive given their career path. Criminals are always interested in money, and art is always a quick buck if you can get it away from the snobs who guard it like the most precious item in the universe. Those overpriced swirls they had Harper bitching about are still overpriced swirls that would rake in thousands to millions, depending on the artist. That the point of the heist wasn't actually the art itself was obvious the second you realize the thief only stole one painting per theft, and that the thief was the detective. I knew immediately that it was not about what was painted. Either the paintings would have something beneath the work, or they would point to something the Court of Owls wanted. The scene with Harper and Dylan McKillen was so cringe I had a hard time getting through it, short as it was. What the hell happened to the guy who held the idiots at gunpoint and was going to turn them in for reward money? That was not the guy we saw in the scene in this episode. This guy was a gibbering pansy practically crying about his feelings and what his therapist told him. And then he is emotionally manipulated like a 3-year-old by Harper, tricking him into helping her. But girl power or something. I have another question. Where did Turner pull the Batarang and the Bat Bomb out of? He was wearing a sword and a jacket with no overly suspicious bulges that would explain either weapon. And how does he know how to use either? Cullen is surprised he has the Bat Bomb and asks if Robin knows he took it. That seems to indicate that nobody else has seen him with them or training with them. And yet he knew how to throw the Batarang to knock Green's gun downward and how to activate the Bat Bomb. Cool. I love fairy tales too. For a while in the episode, I was sure I would not have anything to bitch about vis-a-vis the editor. And then the end of the episode happened. Especially the very end, where we go from the hostage exchange to the tower with Stephanie bandaging Harper, to bedtime fun with Harvey and Rebecca, to the newscast about Green's family, to Turner and Duella watching it, to Harvey in his office with Cressida, intercut with the Court of Owls burning the paintings, all in about 10 minutes. And that is including a commercial break. Ridiculous. However, there is one thing I have neglected to mention, and it is what I referenced at the beginning of this video. They actually did something fairly significant right in this episode. And if you paid attention to my bitching this long and noticed what I left out, then you can probably guess that it is the storyline with Duella and Robin. Don't get me wrong, it was not perfect, but Duella was actually a character in this episode. And she was a character that resembled the one we saw in the first episode. She was approaching excellent in this episode. I loved her kidnapping evil Granny, tasing her, dumping her in the trunk. I especially loved the part of her going over the speed bumps to make the experience less enjoyable for Eunice. While Robin was not great, she was acceptable in her part of this storyline, playing off of Duella fairly well. And the actress playing Eunice, Veronica Cartwright, must have had a blast with her part. If the entire show was like this, it would be more watchable. But it isn't. To tell you the truth, I would not be shocked to hear this was a mistake, or a rewrite, or something Olivia Rose Keegan pushed for. It was Duella being the chaotic presence the show is begging for, and Robin being the goody two-shoes she is, and Eunice being the crazy evil bitch she is. It all pretty much worked, except for the reason for it. Pumping evil Granny for information on why Talon is still alive doesn't work for me. Robin's line of attack was much smarter and would have been far more fruitful. They could have gleaned an insider's glimpse of the Court of Owls, something that could come in handy later on. Instead, Duella was trying to find the secret to immortality that apparently the court has used up. And I am sure there will be plot holes in that storyline going forward. While this episode was much more watchable than the past few, there were so many holes in the story that I kept getting yanked out of the immersion. And the editor's meth problem added to that. It is hard to stay immersed in a story, worry about a character's peril, or get invested in a romance if the show is cut like the editor is doing lines in the editing booth. And one scene does not a show make, especially one scene out of 7 episodes. 7 episodes of near uniform smeared on the screen in hopes the audience is made up of drooling imbeciles, which seems to be the target demographic CW has been shooting for over the last few years. Well, that and the elderly and comatose. But those are just my thoughts on this episode. If you watched it, let me know if you agree down below. That is all I have for this video. If you liked the video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and as I already mentioned, comment down below. I really appreciate it. The next video should be the Flash video I have had to put off. A Haunting in Venice and the trailer for Dune Part 2 will also be forthcoming. Until then, Tschüss.